I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District. Today is April 11th. The time is 12:15. We do have roll call on here on the printed agenda. Can we start with Mr. Jackson?
George Jackson.
Pam Kirby. Barbara Perleberg.
Denny Brown.
And Bonnie Sneed. Mrs. Kirby, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. The first order item is the consent agenda. Board action is required. Can I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is an action item. It is 4A, board direction regarding reduction of elementary specials. Dr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and our public. First of all, I want to apologize for a little bit of the technology glitch. Technology is great, and sometimes it comes in as a little bug in the last moment, but we do have the presentation up on the screen. We have one of our cameras that is projecting that presentation, and the board members all have a handout. So Dr. Sitton is going to present to you the results of the survey that we were asked to do. I'd like to thank Dr. Sitton and Dr. Thomas and Dr. McNeil for their work in coordinating with all of our principals, our parent groups, and our teachers to helping us get this survey out and back in a timely fashion. And we will be sharing with you the results and a recommendation.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. I'm going to share with you the results, what the survey questions were and what our results ended up for. So we completed a survey that went out to parents, the leadership groups from the various schools, and elementary teachers at all of the K-5 schools that are affected. And we gave to them the two options to take a look at. We gave a little bit of explanation of what each was and some of the details, along with then a link to a survey that had the two questions on it. And they were asked to go ahead and take a look at the two different proposals and which one they preferred and to provide us with some input. So the first one was the weekly early release on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. The second one being a 20-minute adjustment to the start and end time of school, which would be a 9 to a 3:10 school day. At close of 5 p.m. yesterday, we said, well, let me go back. We already shared at the meeting on Tuesday the elementary school principal's preference. So their preference was the early release Wednesdays. And then at 5 p.m. when the survey closed yesterday, the teacher's preference was also the early release Wednesdays. We had 71%, which was 263 votes for the early release. And then for the shortened day and changing that time was 29%, which was 107 votes. Then the parent leaders also took the survey, and their choice came up for the shortened day as their first choice at 56% with 41 parents. And the early release received 33 parents' preference at 44%. So taking a look at the results, and we have the preference being first for the teachers as a release and from the principal group. And the data was fairly close on the parent as well. Our recommendation is to take a look at option 1 for next year, moving forward with the weekly early release on Wednesday.
Discussion from board members. Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sitton. A couple of questions on the survey. What was the response rate from the elementary teachers, and were K-8 teachers included in that survey or not?
We had just over 60% response rate. And the K-8 schools did not receive it because we're taking a look at a different model for them.
Any other board discussion? Questions? Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you. A couple of questions just regarding instructional time. with respect to the core subjects, math, reading, science, and social studies. Can you elaborate on the core instructional minutes? Are they changing or are they not changing this year versus next year?
Board Member Kirby, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Mrs. Cuomo, we have done that analysis, and we're finding that the core instructional minutes will not change for next year under this model. Would you like some detail?
No, I want to verify that we are not cutting minutes from the core subjects.
We are not. That is something that we looked at across the year and have analyzed and calculated a couple of different ways, and there will not be a reduction in minutes today.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Peterson, I have some questions. I'm not sure who to address them to. One of the things that I'd like to have our memories refreshed is how many years have we had to deal with budget cuts at this district since 2008?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Since the economic issues that have hit the state for the last at least 6 years, we've been impacted. A little bit 2008, but really 2009, 10, we had some major impacts, and every year since then. Overall, funding to education has been reduced by over 22%. So not only, and that doesn't even include the reduction due to our override, which is a little over another 6.7%. But just the state funding itself as a whole has been reduced 22% to K-12 education.
And can you tell me, does anybody here know the last time that we reduced our fine arts offerings?
I don't have a memory of reducing fine arts offerings.
This is the first year that this has been considered.
Yeah, we have, there was a slight reduction in band and strings at the elementary level last year.
And I bring that up because it's totally understandable that people wouldn't voluntarily follow this entire process until their awareness is raised. And so there seems to be a lot of misinformation that this is the first thing we are doing to to address cuts to a budget. I know, since I've been here since 2009, that that's not the case, but I'm hoping that everyone is united in their message to people that are, I say, understandably just starting to pay attention that this was not the first option. And I can tell you personally, it would never have been the first option for me. One of the things that I'm hearing is that the half-day, if we go with that option, that the half-day would give students the ability to get additional instruction, maybe some interventions during that afternoon period. Is that what I'm hearing? I heard that from the principals, I think, but I want to be clear on if we're going to do that and how it would be funded.
Yes, Madam President, there are many options with the early release Wednesday. By making the early release Wednesday at 1 o'clock, therefore it would be after school. Tax credit funds, monies can be used to support enrichment as well as tutorial programs across the board. Principals are currently already dialoguing with key teachers and creating ideas and things perhaps to help families perhaps that this might inconvenience. Currently, we have 10 schools that applied for the 21st Century Grant. We are optimistic. Those are at our Title I schools. With the grant comes many opportunities before and after school as well. Those school principals and leaders are currently having dialogue and already put into their plan how perhaps this would help on those Wednesdays and every other day.
Can you, when you say 21st century grants, can you explain what some of those are? I mean, what needs of the children that those would address?
It's all it's a site-based plan that each of the 10 schools put together, saying what their
Right.
for our Title I schools, what their needs are, perhaps looking at their performance data. School A might need some help in mathematics, so therefore their focus might be math. So they would have enrichment and tutorials for mathematics. They might see that a lot of their kids are at the meets category on the Ames test and really want to boost them to the exceed. So you would have some enrichment opportunities there. It would vary from school to school, and they have complete autonomy to create a plan that will work for them.
And do we anticipate that we might be able to also offer some fine arts opportunities
You bet.
during that period of time?
Yeah, chess club, music time, you bet. All those things. The sky is the limit when it comes to tax credit. The 21st Century Grant has a little more strict boundaries, a little more things that we need to comply with, but yes, there is options.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm so impressed with the background work that you all did in such a short time frame, giving us what the school day would look like and several different schedule options. Thank you very much for doing that. My hope is that money will come from somewhere, maybe some of the backfill money, maybe from the governor's office, something, so that we can keep these programs going. And especially, I'm hoping that we start to get a little more support from our community that started supporting those programs, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And it's been unfortunate just in the last 2 years that even though that was in the ballot language, they said no.
Madam President, with respect to the hard work, I would have to give a lot of credit to our elementary school principals. Following the meeting, they were charged immediately to say, what would it look like? How would it impact your core instruction time? Would it? How are we going to fill in the gaps and make everything magical, if you will, under hard circumstances? And they really stepped up to the plate. We presented 3 different schedules to you that looked very, very different.
Right.
And it's very interesting how principals see their schools through different lenses, depending on the size and the demographics that they have. So I know that their number one purpose and driving force would be to increase student achievement and increased instruction time. We're currently already looking at ways to skim off some time to increase instructional time so that we're maximizing. So we're sending the message to our community that instruction time is important to us. We're going to get it done.
Is there a concern that's been expressed to anyone about, from parents, saying or thinking that there won't be some place for their child to be in the afternoon, that they're just going to be released?
Madam President, sure, I know there's concerns with that. I personally have not heard of that, but I know that the principals and the building leaders are already projecting that knowing their families, which families perhaps work early in the morning, which ones work late, and obviously looking at student data to take care of those programs. So I haven't heard it, but let's be realistic. We know that it will exist, and we're going to do everything we can to ensure that kids are safe and they're getting extra good stuff from the time that we start to the time that we go home.
I guess the other question that I would have before I could fully support the early Wednesday release is, should money come back to us and we get used to the idea of having all these programs in the middle of the week or after school on Wednesday, will we be able to seamlessly go back to more fine arts offerings should the funding come in?
I would certainly say that that's absolutely a possibility. As with anything, we would take that conversation back to our assistant principals to get their feedback and input around what that might look like, but that's absolutely a possibility.
It's just very important to me that whenever possible, as soon as possible, that we restore these opportunities for our students. I wasn't paying attention to what order, so we'll just work on down the line. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. I just want to mirror what Board President Sneed said. The work that's come together on this very quickly is impressive, so thank you. Dr. Holmes, Dr. McNeil, and everybody else that worked on this. Again, to dovetail on Bonnie's comments, this is a tragic, or this is a very sad situation. We're having to even look at reducing arts and PE and music programs. None of us, believe me, want to go there. Nobody in this room does. I'm well aware of that. We were faced with this last year when the first budget override didn't pass, and we were able to keep these programs fully, more or less fully sustained, and here we are with a second override failure, unfortunately, this last November, and therefore here we are, and it's a very sad place to be. I will say there are consequences of elections, and our community, whether it's apathy or anger, in my opinion, misinterpreted anger, whatever the reason, our community has not gotten behind our override votes the last two cycles, and it's easy to, I shouldn't say easy, oftentimes people look to find blame here, and blaming the governing board or beating up administrators who are overworked and underpaid and dedicated. I guess that's an easy place to go. Our community did not support two overrides which fund these programs, and that's why we're here today. And that has to change. And so I just need to say thank you, gentlemen, for your great work on this. It's very unfortunate that we're here, but I'm hoping this next go-around we will get the support of our community, get the override passed, get these programs funded like they need to be and should be, restore a lot of things that we've had to cut here in this school district, but the community needs to look inward, and I'm sorry to get on that, but we tear ourselves apart and point fingers at each other, and the reality is we've been fighting over a much smaller pie, and the pie will continue to get smaller until our community gets behind us and supports these overrides. So thank you, gentlemen.
Mrs. Kirby.
Thank you. Back to President Sneed's questions regarding after school. Is it true that every elementary K-5 campus will have, whether it be 21st Century Grant, community schools, City of Scottsdale, will every campus have an option available?
Madam President, Dr. Peterson, Sandra, to answer your question, yes. Currently, every campus would have an option. Some campuses actually have multiple options, like a PIMA is one applying for the grant and also has Kids Club. So right now, every campus would have an option we'd be able to put something at.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to just add an echo. Thank you for the hard work in a short period of time. It is very compelling to me that I think it was 14 out of 15 principals agreed. We surveyed our teachers. I know they were grateful for the ask. Had a 60% response rate with 71% agreeing. We know we can't make everyone happy all the time, and so my barometer is if we can get 80-20, we're doing a really good job, and we got close to that. So thank you for that effort. It gives me more confidence in the decision that I'll be making a bit later. The one question that's been asked of me is, since we are providing this direction today and taking action on what this school week may look like, is it a foregone conclusion that specials will be cut? Because that is not exactly the action we're taking today. So Dr. Peterson, because that action will come later as part of the entire budget approval.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. To answer that question is some things that we need to put in context. And first and foremost, we have some statutory constraints and some employment agreement constraints regarding RIFs, reductions of force, notifications, and those types of things. So we have to notify employees this week regarding reductions in force. We are compelled to have to do that. In order to do that, we have to make some of these decisions. So the decisions we are making are to reduce specials. Has that been finalized with the governing board? No, it is not. It's been in our budget presentations. It's been a recommendation from the budget committee. We've had all of those items that we've been brought forward, and we are building our budget based on that reduction, along with all the other cuts and savings and things that we've done. Could it be restored? Absolutely. If we were to somehow give a benefactor to give us some dollars, we could do that immediately. We would be happy to do that immediately. If the legislature were to increase funding for schools, we would do that immediately. We've also said, and you saw last Tuesday night in our presentation, that the override in November, as we look to those dollars and the appropriateness of spending and prioritizing those dollars, our first priority was return specials. The next priority was to get pay for teachers, horizontal and vertical movement for our teachers, and to reduce class sizes by 3. Those were our priorities. The classroom is number one priority for an override. We've said that very clearly. We will continue to say that because that's important. But right now, we have to move forward, and so we are making this recommendation. We are not making it without a lot of thought, without a lot of consideration, and we're making it with sadness. This is not a good day, but we know that we have to do this to move forward.
Thank you.
Mrs. Perleberg.
Thank you. And I think it is important, obviously, just as Dr. Pearson said, is that we put this decision today all in context. This isn't what we want. Not a single person in this building or in this district is grateful that this is happening right now. 22% reduction in our state funding and 2 lost overrides has brought us here today, clearly. There's no doubt about that. But I think with all the hard work that's gone into the decisions that we're trying to get confidence around, that we are doing what's right under the circumstances that we're in, there has been a lot of thought. There's been a lot of work. There's been disagreements and dialogue, but also a lot of caring and love that goes into this district and these decisions is clear. I think the priorities of student learning and teacher effectiveness, it can be seen in this plan that we're looking at today. So that's why I'm confident making it. Certainly not happy about making this decision, but that's why I'm confident that I'm doing the right thing when I make this vote today. One thing I'd like to, I guess, ask you a little bit or ask our district to think about is that early release day. Being an ex-PTO president myself, I think a lot of our parents are going to be wondering, what can our PTOs legally do, provide in that early release financially, how many limitations there are. May not be able to answer that today, but every PTO president's going to be asking that, I think, in the next few months. So maybe help support them in those questions, and just thank you all, and those who still love public education, want to support it. It's time to let our voices be heard. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
To echo, I think, what everyone has said, the very foundation of Denny Brown has been the arts. That was how I got started in life. That's been the key to my life. I love the arts. And to be here today and talking about this is very, very painful. But We're there. We need to move forward. There's hard decisions that have been made, that are being made, and I'm here, and here we go. I guess my only thing is I'd like to hear some, as we move forward with the potential half-day or the 1 o'clock thing, 1 o'clock. I'd like to get a bit of an update, what actually is taking place, or what, as we get farther down the road, what our principals coming up with or teachers coming up with, just so we have an idea what's out there.
Yeah.
And I guess that's that.
Madam President, Board Member Brown, and all the board members, I will commit to you that as we move forward and we solidify plans at the schools, we will keep everyone informed. And matter of fact, we will advertise that because we need our parents to know what's there, that we're taking care of them, and what they can do to have their students involved. So we will continually keep you updated on the progress being made.
Mrs. Kirby.
President Sneed, are you ready for a motion?
I am. I just had one more thing that I wanted to say. I can't leave here today without thanking the administration, this board for their thoughtfulness and research, the previous boards that we had that have kept this from happening for almost 6 years. And it's been an effort on every single person's part to make sure that we don't reduce opportunities for our students. And they deserve accolades for that. And so, yes, I'm ready for a motion at this time.
I move to accept staff's recommendation that option 1, weekly early release on Wednesday, be approved.
Does the motion have a second?
I'll second.
All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
So moved.
By Mrs. Kirby. We finally got a second. Mr. Brown. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And that motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.